So yesterday, there was a lot of anticipation over Jimmy Kimmel's return to air for the first time since his suspension. And he was back last night. Take a look.
I'm happy to be here tonight with you. I'm not sure who had a weirder 48 hours, me or the CEO of Tylenol. I want to thank the people who don't support my show and what I believe, but support my right to share those beliefs anyway. Like Ben Shapiro, Clay Travis, Candace Owens, Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, even my old pal Ted Cruz. I do want to make something clear because it's important to me as a human, and that is, you understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man. I don't think there's anything funny about it. I posted a message on Instagram on the day he was killed, sending love to his family and asking for compassion, and I meant it, and I still do. This show is not important. What is important is that we get to live in a country that allows us to have a show like this.
It's a whack job, but he had no talent, and more importantly than talent, he had no, because a lot of people have no talent, they get ratings. But he had no ratings.
Well, I do tonight. He did his best to cancel me. Instead, he forced millions of people to watch the show. That backfired bigly. He might have to release the Epstein files to distract us from this now.
So how'd you think he did?
He hit everything perfectly. I think he touched on the most important parts, like the protection of freedom of speech, but he also so emotionally recognized that his intention was never to mock a murder. And I think that's where comedians are unique. You really have to think about the person you're criticizing, because oftentimes comedians are here to remind us that we need to hold governments accountable. We need to be able to equal opportunity offenders. We're trying to make people laugh. He was so clear on that. But I love that he really took time to say, thank you to those people who disagree with me, because they deserve credit for speaking up in a moment that it was so crucial.
You know,
I also, oh no, go ahead.
You know, the thing that's interesting about this to me is that autocrats, dictators, go after comedians. He's not the first, Trump is not the first one to do this. Putin, for example, his first actions when he took power was to take over a TV network that aired a comedy show that mocked him with puppets. In Iran, they've done the same, something similar. Even in Turkey with Erdogan, they don't like a comedian. Why? Because comedians tell the truth, make you laugh, and it resonates with you.
Yeah.
And they do not like that. So, you know, it's interesting because they call themselves strong men, but they actually are very weak men. Because they can't take a joke. Yeah. You know, throughout history, presidents have been mocked in this country, and it's always been a great thing about this country. I remember, I'm old enough to remember when the Smothers Brothers were taken off the air also because they upset Nixon. That was a big deal, and we got past it.
You remember that Lyndon Johnson wrote them and said, that's not okay. The people coming after you because of what you think is un-American.
That's right.
I mean, it's...
And you know, JFK was mocked by Vaughn Meader.
Yeah.
And Nixon again was mocked. Even Ronald Reagan. I was on a show, Steve Allen show, and there was this guy, Rich Little, who used to make fun of Reagan. And Reagan thought it was funny because he had a sense of humor. And so they're very threatened by people who are funny. Yeah. And they will always first go after the comedians. And that's very important for you to watch out for.
Yeah. What I loved was that Jimmy Kimmel made this bigger than himself. That line was key to me. The show is not important. What is important is that we live in a country that allows us to have a show like this. Yeah. He talked about his staff of 200 people multiple times, fellow late night hosts who've come under threat. He talked about these damning reports that the Pentagon is cracking down on free speech. He's talking about something so much bigger than this particular drama. And I thought that that was big of him to realize that he's a symbol of a struggle that's going on, but speak to the broader moment. And then I loved him shouting out those people who disagreed with him. Joe Rogan was extremely powerful on this yesterday. I recommend if people get a chance just to listen to it. But Ben Shapiro, Clay Travis, people who are not fans necessarily of Kimmel's, but they get that the way that you counter speech you don't like is with more speech. That's the whole essence of the First Amendment.
You know, Ted Cruz knows, and what's his name, Tucker Carlson, they know that this will come back on them.
Well,
at some point, they will be censored.
That should should be the thought, and I think that is the thought. I think this brought attention to the fact that the First Amendment is freedom of the press, freedom of speech, and it's the First Amendment for a reason, because I think our founding fathers thought it was one of the most important things that makes us American, right? That makes us this country, this wonderful country. And Jimmy Kimmel said many times, it is un-American. It is un-American because freedom of speech is the bedrock of our democracy. One thing, to your point, Alyssa, that I thought was very important, and Joy, you often say they come for the comedians. You also say they come for the press. They always come for the press.
Truth.
And what Kimmel said is, I know, he said that Pete Hegseth says he will require reporters to sign a pledge that they won't report anything that isn't explicitly authorized for release by the Department of Defense. Now that is scary, and Kimmel says, I know that's not as interesting as muzzling a comedian, but it's so important to have a free press, and it is nuts that we aren't paying more attention to it. And I think that's very, very important.
Can I mention one more moment that honestly touched me? Like, I don't talk about my faith a ton on the show, but I'm a Christian. Yeah. Jimmy Kimmel is as well. And he addressed Erica Kirk's remarks at the memorial this past weekend. If we could play that clip.
Erica Kirk forgave the man who shot her husband. She forgave him. That is an example we should follow. If you believe in the teachings of Jesus, as I do, there it was. That's it. A selfless act of grace, forgiveness from a grieving widow. It touched me deeply.
Yeah.
Well, that was so powerful, and not to pivot from that, but there was also another part with Robert De Niro that was very funny.
I mentioned you in that, Whoopi.
Well, I wasn't going to ruin that part. Let's take a look at the clip.
We reached out to the chairman of the FCC, Brendan Carr, and he has, to his credit, agreed to join us from his office in Washington. And here he is now. Thank you, Chairman Carr, for being with us tonight.
You tell Whoopi over there she better show a little respect, or the only view she's getting is from under George Washington. The bridge, not the guy.
It was great.
He also picked up on when De Niro, he says, hello, handsome. Oh, yes, Mr. President. Like, you really have to kiss his butt for him to leave you alone.
Well, you know what? The thing is, it doesn't matter whether you're a comedian or just a regular old person who goes about their day. You have every right. It's your birthright as an American. If you're not happy with what's going on, you're allowed to say it. If you don't like how things are going, you're allowed to say it. It is your birthright. That's part of what makes you an American. It's part of what makes us different than everybody else. And we acknowledged all of those Republicans who recognized that it's not a right or left right. It is the right of all Americans. So if it goes for us on the left or the middle, it also goes for you on the right. So we want to make sure that everybody can still say and be who they want to be when they are here, when they are American. When people come to us, that's why people still want to come to this country, because we offer rights to people that many people don't get in other countries. There is a great pride to still have in America. In spite of what you saw at the UN yesterday, there is a great right to being an American. And I'm very proud to say, we talk about it, and we'll talk more about that when we come back, but we are proud to be American. We're proud to do what we do, and we're proud that you all continue to watch us. Whether you like what we're saying or not, we appreciate you.